All right, so for this video, I want to go over the Mendelian genetics PowerPoint that I put up on Blackboard. Specifically, a couple of the practice problems at the end, because you're going to have to, for today's assignment, you're going to have to do a few of these problems to get credit for attendance. So I will tell you, when you go to view this PowerPoint, it is best viewed in full screen slideshow mode. If you convert it for whatever reason to Google Slides or anything like that, like if you're on the Apple device, it might not retain some of the animations. So just be mindful of that, which is another reason why I wanted to make this video, so that you could see the animations. So genetics terminology that we had discussed before. I'm going to move my video so you can see this. We talked about genes before being units of hereditary information, specifically a sequence of DNA that codes for a protein. And you can see that in the image on the bottom right corner there. And then again, I talked about this in the last video, the genetics vocab video, but it doesn't hurt to hear it again. Genotype is the genetic makeup, whereas phenotype are the physical characteristics. And then allele is a possible form of a gene, and we talk about it in terms of dominant or recessive, or stronger or weaker. So there we go. So homozygous has the same allele. So this is homozygous recessive, means there's two recessive alleles. Homozygous dominant means there's two dominant alleles. And then if we have two different alleles, if we have a dominant and a recessive for the same gene, then we are heterozygous for that trait. And then we haven't talked about this yet, codominant. So sometimes you have more than one dominant allele, and one isn't strong enough to overshadow the other, so they actually are expressed in separate ways. And that's codominance, meaning they are both dominant. Things like co-workers or people who work together doing like the same job. So these dominant alleles are expressed in separate ways. And then kind of going on with that a little bit more, you have incomplete dominance. Sometimes the two dominant alleles, when they show up, they actually make a whole new phenotype. And the most popular example of this are in snapdragons. If you're not familiar with snapdragons, they're a pretty interesting flower that's in the picture I have here. Let's see if I don't even know if this will show it, but this flower here, this part actually kind of springs open. It almost looks like a little mouth, and they kind of snap shut. But the red and the white colors are both dominant. So when they are inherited, like in this case, if we have a pure white flower that's homozygous for the white color, and if we have a red flower that's homozygous for the red color, and we breed them together, then they'll inherit one white and one red allele, one from each parent, and that'll actually blend together. And we will have offspring that have a new phenotype, in this case, pink. Think like if you take red and white paint and you mix it together, you get pink. So this is incomplete dominance. One isn't stronger than the other. It blends to make a new phenotype. Let's go to the next one. All right, so this is like I said, this is the important part that utilizes the slideshow. So if you look at this PowerPoint, it's best to watch it in slideshow and present mode. So what I have here is I have a big B and a little b, and this is our genotype. These are our genes. You know, if I ask in a question, give me the genotype for this, this is what you would write. Not always big B, little b. It's just you're giving me the letters that represent the dominant and the types of alleles inherited, either a dominant or recessive in this case. So for this one, we have one dominant, which is the capital B. Dominant alleles are always written as capital letters. And for formatting purposes, the dominant is usually written first, or I'm going to say is written first. It's not technically incorrect if you put little b, big B, but there's probably a geneticist somewhere that would be mad about that. It's just easier. As soon as you see that dominant allele, you know that they're going to have the dominant phenotype. So it's better to write it that way. So we have a dominant allele and we have a recessive allele. So we have two different forms of this gene. This was inherited. The dominant allele came from one parent, the recessive allele came from the other parent. So for this particular trait, whatever we're looking at, I'll stick with the flower color from the pea plants from before. They inherited a dominant and a recessive. So because they have two different forms of this allele, this is heterozygous. Remember, hetero means different. And this particular case, the dominant phenotype would show up. So if it was the pea flower color, purple was the dominant one. So this one would be purple for the phenotype. This is the genotype, big B, little b, or heterozygous is the genotype. But phenotype would be what it looks like. All right. Let's go to the next one. In this one, we have two big B's. We have big B, big B. They are both the same. Both alleles are the same. So this is homozygous dominant. Remember, homo means same. And you have to have dominant after it to tell us that the two alleles are both dominant. If you just put homozygous, it's wrong because are they both dominant or are they both recessive? You have to distinguish. And because there's at least one copy of the dominant allele, then this is going to have the dominant phenotype. And then finally our little b, two recessive alleles. And hopefully you're already thinking, hey, I know that both of them are recessive. Homozygous means same. So they're both the same. So it has to be homozygous. And they're both recessive. So I have to put homozygous recessive. Move my video here. So both alleles are recessive. This is homozygous recessive. Again, it's very important to understand that in order for the recessive phenotype to show up, say white flowers, like we were talking about in the pea plants, you need two recessive alleles. They need two copies because if there's one copy of that dominant allele is going to take over. It's going to overshadow. So this one would have the recessive phenotype. All right, moving on. Then we get a little bit into Punnett squares. I'm not super fond of this Punnett square over here, but I like that it's color coded. So a Punnett square shows or is our way to predict the possible genotype and phenotype of the offspring of parents with known genotypes. This is called a monohybrid cross. Mono meaning one, so it's only for one trait. So our example here on the screen is for the pea pod color. They're not bananas. I've gotten that before. And in pea plants, yellow is dominant to green. So you can see that the parent on the left here, so we have one parent that is over here, and this is our other parent over here. And I don't know what's going on with my pen, but I'm just going to keep going with it. So one parent on the left, one parent on the top, and we separate them to show. So this is one allele, and this is our other allele that this parent could potentially pass on. And this simulates meiosis and how meiosis breaks those alleles apart. So the gametes for this particular parent are either going to contain the dominant allele or the recessive allele. That's driving me crazy. Let me get rid of all that. Whereas this parent, because they are green, they have the recessive phenotype, they can only give a recessive allele. So they have two recessive alleles. They're homozygous recessive. And what happens is this one comes down and this one comes over. And this is one possibility for this offspring. Then we take this one all the way down. I don't know what is going on with this today. This one comes all the way down. And then this one comes over. And this is another possibility. And the same thing with the other column. And each one represents a 25% chance to have that genotype. It is just that, though. It is a prediction. It is not guaranteed. So for these two parent plants, there is a 2 out of 4 or 50% chance to have heterozygous, big Y, little y, or yellow, because remember, they only need one dominant allele. So 50% chance that these two parent plants are going to produce yellow potted offspring, and a 50% chance, or 2 out of 4, or 1/2, to have green offspring. There is a 0% chance of having homozygous dominant because it's not in the squares. So if it's not there, it's not a possibility. So let's look at another example of this. Move my. It's the same thing just over again. Let me go to the next one. So going back to those lovely pea flowers again, because I keep talking about that. So if we have, so this is one parent up here, and this parent can give a big B or a little b because they are heterozygous for this flower color. So they are purple flowers because they have one dominant allele. The other parent, in this case, the pistil is the female, is also heterozygous. So depending on what is in the eggs and how they combine, if a sperm with a big B combines with an egg with a big B, then we're going to have homozygous dominant offspring. And then on the flip side of that, if we have this, recessive allele combining with the recessive allele in the egg, don't know why that's drawing all crazy. Assuming y'all can see it, I don't even know if that's showing up. But if we have the recessive allele from the pollen combining with a recessive allele in the egg, then we're going to have offspring that are going to be homozygous recessive, little b, little b. And because it's only one square, it's a 25% chance to get that genotype and a 25% chance to get that phenotype. However, if you look at how many squares contain at least one dominant allele, we have 1, 2, 3. So we actually have a 75% chance to get purple flowers, 25% chance to get the big B, 50% because there are 2 with the big B, little b, heterozygous. So 50% chance to get that genotype, but 75% chance to get the phenotype of purple flowers. All right, so let's do some practice problems. I have no idea what I'm doing on time with this one, so hopefully this video isn't too long. So let's do some practice problems to kind of help you out. So you're going to have to make some, anytime it says cross, you're going to have to do a Punnett square. It's not letting me switch to my pen. So cross a heterozygous with a homozygous plant, a homozygous recessive. That's important, right? Can't just say homozygous, have to say homozygous recessive. So our heterozygous plant, and I didn't give you letters for this, so I'm just going to use the letter A because like I said in a previous video, it's just easier to use letters that look different, very distinct, capital and lowercase. So our purple flowers are dominant. So purple is going to be the big A, whereas white is going to be little a. And in our heterozygous plant, that means their genotype is going to be different. Hetero means different. Let me erase all that and start over here. So our heterozygous plant is going to have one dominant allele and one recessive allele. And our homozygous recessive, remember homo means same, and we both are being told that both of them are recessive. So that means they're going to be little a, little a. So it says cross a heterozygous with a homozygous recessive, determine the possible genotypes and phenotypes of the offspring. You got to make a Punnett square. Anytime you see cross, you're making a Punnett square. Ooh, I don't know why it's doing that. So we can put one parent on the left. So let's put the heterozygous parent. It does not matter what parent you put where, as long as you keep the one parent's genetics together on that side. So that's parent 1, the heterozygous. And then I'm going to put the homozygous recessive parent up here, little a, and then we're going to basically drag and drop. So this big A comes over and goes here. It also comes over and goes here. So what happens is it is filling this whole row with that. So you have a big A here, you put a big A here, big A there. Same thing with this little a at the bottom. So little a, little a. Kind of driving me crazy why it just keeps doing all that. So little a. I don't know why it's doing that. And then what's going to happen is you're going to take this little a and bring it down. So little a here, little a here, little a here. So this one comes straight down. This one also comes straight down. I do not know why it's skipping like that. It's really messy. I'm really sorry about that. So the possible genotypes and phenotypes are we can have heterozygous, we can have big A, little a. Wow. Let's see. Oops. Let's see if it'll let me do it with my finger better. Little a or big A, little a. So we have heterozygous because we had two of those with that, or we could have homozygous recessive. The one that is heterozygous, now we also have to put the phenotypes. Those are our possible genotypes. This would be purple flower, and little a would be white flower. And it's a 50-50 chance of having purple or white flowers. Because it was not in the 4 squares in our Punnett square, it is impossible for these two parents to produce homozygous dominant offspring. It's just not going to happen. It's not an impossibility. So hopefully my next slide, I can maybe write a little bit better because I use my finger on my touch screen and maybe that'll be better. So we're still using the pea plants with the purple flowers being dominant to white flowers. I'm going to keep using the letter A. So again, my purple flower, I'm going to use the big A, the dominant allele, and white flower is going to be my recessive allele. So what is the probability that 2 heterozygous plants produce heterozygous offspring? So heterozygous is, remember, different. So you have one dominant and one recessive. Both parents are the same. So let me make my Punnett square down here. Dominant, recessive for parent 1. Dominant, recessive for parent 2. Kind of running out of room. So fill in this column with that dominant from here. Fill in this column with the recessive from here. Whoops. And then these need to come over. And then this one needs to come over. I keep popping open the help. So the probability that they're going to produce heterozygous offspring. Now you have to look at your Punnett square and see how many of the squares are heterozygous. If there's none, then it's 0. But there are actually 2 squares. There's one here and one here. So it's a 50% chance. Whoops, let me not use that one. It was good when I was highlighting, but not so good with that. So 50% chance here. Or you could say 2 out of 4 or 1 out of 2. I mean, because there's 2 of the 4 squares are heterozygous. Now, the next question, we can use the same Punnett square. We don't have to make another Punnett square because we're still looking at the 2 heterozygous plants. But what is the possibility of them producing homozygous recessive offspring? Homo meaning same. What's the same? Well, we have 2 recessive, homozygous recessive. So what's the possibility of that? We'll look at your Punnett square and see how many squares, if any, have homozygous recessive offspring. And the answer is there's only 1 square here. So it is a 25% chance because each square represents 25%. If you do 25 plus 25 plus 25 plus 25 equals 100, it's like quarters in a dollar. or you could say 1 out of 4. Either one to me would be acceptable answers. All right. So if you need to, before I even go into this next one, I know I'm going a little bit fast. If you need to, stop, rewind, replay any of the parts that you need before moving on to the next one. You don't have, that's the advantage of the videos, is you can replay them. All right, so I'm gonna go on with practice question 3. So again, we're still doing purple is dominant, so big A to little a for the white flowers. So you crossed a purple and a white flower plant. The resulting offspring were 50% purple and 50% white flowers. What is the genotype of the purple flower plant? Now, before you even answer, you might have an answer, you might even be right. Maybe you understand this, maybe you remember this from high school, but double check your answer. So we know, what we absolutely know is that the white flower parent plant, in order to have the white flower as the phenotype, this parent has to be little a, little a. Our purple flower parent can be big A, little a, or big A, big A. So you have to determine which genotype would give you a mix of white and purple flower offspring. So do not assume that because it's a purple flower that it's automatically homozygous dominant, and I'm going to show you why. Because if this parent is homozygous dominant and the other parent is homozygous recessive, and some of you might be watching this video and you're already ahead of me on this parent can only give a dominant allele. This parent can only give a recessive allele. So every single one of these offspring are going to be heterozygous. And if they're heterozygous and they have one dominant allele, that means they're all purple. That wasn't the case. Our offspring were 50% purple, 50% white. So in order to even have a chance at having white flowers, both parents have to have a recessive allele to give. Because remember, white flowers are homozygous recessive. So it can't be this one. It has to be this one, and I'm going to show you why. So again, I'm going to put this parent over here. This is our purple flower parent, our heterozygous in this case. Make my lovely little Punnett square. I'm sorry that I'm writing on the thing. I have for the screencast, if I have a little bar at the bottom that is preventing me from doing too low. So this parent can give this dominant allele. This parent gives this recessive allele. This parent gives this dominant allele. This parent gives this recessive allele. And then down here, they each give recessive alleles. And if you see my very bad A's, they kind of look like 9s, but you see that there's a 50-50 shot of having heterozygous versus homozygous recessive, or 50-50 purple versus 50-50 white. So the answer for the purple flower is that the purple flower parent plant, ooh, that was kind of a tongue twister, has to be heterozygous. Otherwise, it would not be possible for these two parents to have white flower offspring. All right, so that is the last practice question. I would encourage you, if you're not sure, to go back and review this video again. The terminology is super, 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 super important. I will also post up a couple additional videos, Amoeba Sisters. Y'all know I love the Amoeba Sisters. So that's going to be the one I'm going to share with y'all to help you learn this a little bit better.